That's a great song, Emeka. Just like we practiced before. Please turn your Bibles to Matthew chapter 6. I think it's been a great service so far. You guys sound amazing. That was an incredible song. Thank you, Ami, for sharing your heart so vulnerably with us. Your testimony is very powerful. And I hope that we all were able to draw near to the cross. And it was good to hear all the different disciples share their own conviction about giving special missions. That's kind of going to be the theme of this lesson as well. So hopefully we all still decide to pay attention anyway. Matthew 6, we're going to read here in verse 25. Here Jesus says, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or stow away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that even Solomon, in all his splendor, was not dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you?" Sometimes Jesus' commands border on, just not cool. At least that's how I think about it. Do not worry. Okay, Jesus, well, you're God. Maybe you don't need to worry. Can I worry, though? He says, do not worry. Don't worry about what? Don't worry about your life. Man, that might be the command we break the most, huh? We disobey that one every day, maybe multiple times a day. Maybe you've already broken that command from the time I started speaking just now. Oh, my car, is it going to get, I'm worried. Missions lesson, is it going to be weird? I'm worried now. Don't worry. It's a difficult command to obey. He says, do not worry about food and clothes. I used to read that and think, that might just be kind of outdated. We don't worry about food and clothes. But we actually still kind of do worry about food and clothes. Except not that I might not have it, but maybe I'm eating too much of it, perhaps. Or clothes. Sometimes you walk into your closet and you have so much clothes. And you're like, I have nothing to wear today. But I think beyond that, I sort of think that food represents your material needs. And clothes represent the things you want beyond that. I think it represents status. That's kind of why with clothes, Jesus compares it to Solomon in all his splendor. It's very interesting how God makes a promise here. Verse 33, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these will be given to you as well. As well as what? Your salvation. So you come to God, you get your salvation, and Jesus says, you want to know a secret? I'll give you all the other stuff too. I'll give you all the other stuff too. You don't have to go to the world. You don't have to go to Satan to get your needs met and even to get the things you want. But if you seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, not only do you get your salvation, but you get all the things that the pagans are running after too. See, the pagans, it says they're running after, they're pursuing. Today we have a lot of hustle culture, don't we? We have any hustlers? I respect hustlers, to be honest. Man, the grind does not stop. You guys ever seen that one? It's like, my dentist said I grind in my sleep. He was so real for that. He knows I'm a hustler. But what are people hustling for? What are they grinding for? For food and clothes, right? The money that's going to meet my needs. And then the things beyond that, the status. Aren't clothes still like a status thing? You can wear a t-shirt that's exactly like a $5 t-shirt and pay $5,000 for it. But you know what? People will pay for it because it adds to their own idea of worth, right? There's value, there's security to that. I think what we have to ask ourselves is when he says that if you seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, that he'll give you everything else too, do you actually believe that today? Do you actually believe that? That if you would just put God's kingdom and his righteousness first, that all that stuff you're hustling to try to get, you don't have to run after it. God will just give it to you. Do you really think that? I think one thing we have to understand about God is that his love is unconditional, but his promises are not. God's love is unconditional, But his promises are not unconditional. His promises are very conditional, and the condition is always whether or not we will believe him, whether or not we will be faithful. See, God is always faithful. The question is, are we going to bring faith to the equation ourselves? We're going to do some math today. You guys ready? Any math majors here, maybe? Christine's a math major, wherever she is. All right, we're going to write down a few equations, then we're going to test it. Ready? All right, number one, God plus nothing equals needs met. God plus nothing equals your needs are met. Make sense? All right, next equation. God plus nothing equals everything will be okay. God plus nothing else, equals everything will be okay. A third equation, we ready? God plus nothing equals I'm safe and secure. I'm safe and secure. And we're going to study out these, we're going to do some math theory today. Sound good? All right, let's go to Colossians chapter 3. Point number one is, when God is your everything, you lack nothing. When God is your everything, you lack nothing. Colossians chapter 3. And kind of the sub-point here is the first equation. God plus nothing equals needs met. Make sense? We understand the structure here? I know it's 11:36, a.k.a. nap time for some people. I know it's a little warm in here, and I'm so hungry, and like, can we follow the Bible today? Sound good? I'm speaking to myself. All right, Colossians 3, verse 1. It says, since then, you have been raised with Christ. Set your heart on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. For you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. So right here, it says to set your heart and mind on things above. But it says differently, right? Set your heart on things above and set your mind on things above. What does that tell us? Is that your heart and mind can be on different things. And it says to set it on things above. I checked the Greek. It literally means like something above you. So it doesn't really tell us anything. So we have to ask ourselves, what are the things that are above? What's he talking about? What's above? Heaven? Okay, what's in heaven? God's in heaven. What else is in heaven? Okay, what else is in heaven? We don't know that. There might be no houses. We might sleep on the grass in heaven. I don't know. Okay. Angels are going to be in heaven. Someone said that in Kids Kingdom. I was thinking us, right? Like souls are going to be in heaven. What's not going to be in heaven? Material things, right? Are you going to be able to bring your expensive shoes with you to heaven? Or your portfolio and your brokerage account, things like that. So it says, set your heart and mind on things above, not on earthly things. So at first, it's like, man, that doesn't really make sense. How do I not focus on earthly things? Well, I think he reminds us of something that it's very easy to forget, but it helps us understand. What does it say in verse 3? For you died. You know, if you found out you're going to die tomorrow, would you take all your money and invest it in the stock market? If you found out that at the end of the year this year was your last day on earth, would you start like investing in your retirement? Why not? Isn't it a good financial strategy? Like, why wouldn't you do that? Because you're not going to be there to do anything with it, right? You're going to be dead. So what does the Bible remind us of? You've already died. Your home is in heaven. Your future is not on earth. Everything that you're investing for, why would you invest in something that doesn't belong to you? Heaven now belongs to you. God now belongs to you. And what the thing that gets us is when we forget that we've died and now Christ is actually our life. I think a question we have to ask today is, where has your heart and mind been? Where have your heart and mind been? And just two categories, things above or on earthly things. Here, look here in verse 5. It says, put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature. Sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. Because of these, the wrath of God is coming. You used to walk in these ways in the life you once lived. How do you know if your heart and mind are set on earthly things and not things above? Well, this describes your life. sexual immorality, lust, impurity. It says greed, which is idolatry, because greed is just making money your God. And then he tells us, hey, that used to be you in the life that you used to live, but that's not who you are anymore. I think a lot of times the problem comes when we start having an identity crisis. You ever see someone that's clearly in the middle of an identity crisis? It's kind of embarrassing to watch, right? Like an older person that like starts to kind of get scared of that, and they start doing things, like they start acting ways they've never acted before. You know, a bit of a rant here. This is how I feel when I see like adults using Snapchat. Like when I see a grown-up using Snapchat, right? Like, look, like God will not judge you. This is a judgment-free place, but if I find out you're using, I will judge you. Right? This is not God, this is me, Jordan, judging you, looking down on you for using Snapchat. And I think it's an identity crisis, right? Like you are like an adult, but part of you is like a 7th grader still, and like you're wrestling with. Anyway, that's my rant. But my point is, it's hard to watch someone that like doesn't know who they are, right? Or they can't accept that they're someone different than who they used to be. You know, I think this is what happens to religious people who really love the world. Because their mind is set on loving God, but their heart is not. Their heart loves the world. And when what your mind wants and what your heart wants get different and they start to contradict, well, that's when cognitive dissonance sets in. It's really hard to talk to somebody who's really just refusing to hear the truth, isn't it? Like you ever have a friend that gets like caught up in like a multi-level marketing thing, or they start selling Forex or crypto or whatever, and they're like, no, you're wrong, I'm telling you. Like, no. Like, it's like you can't get through to them. Why? Because they don't want to hear. They don't want to see. They want to protect the fragility of the identity crisis. That makes sense? And that's what can happen to us when we want to love God, but we don't actually check our hearts. Instead, we love the world. Here, look at verse 9. It says, do not lie to each other, since you have taken off your old self with its practices, and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge in the image of its creator. Jump down to verse 15. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you are called to peace, and be thankful. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly, as you teach and admonish one another, with all wisdom, through psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts. And whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. You know, it says that when you put off the old self, you can now be at peace. You know, I think that our heart does a good job of letting us know when we're not treating it well, when we're getting it caught up into things it's not supposed to be caught up in. You know, a pain-free life would not be a good thing, right? Your body actually does a good job of letting you know when you're not treating it well. Like when you touch something that's too hot, or like you smack your pinky toe into something it's not supposed to go into. What does your body provide you to let you know to stop doing that? It provides you pain, right? Like if you didn't have pain, you would like be burning your fingerprints off and your toe would fall off. You know what I mean? Like pain is actually a good thing. I think in the same way, your heart does a really good job of letting you know that you are not setting it on things above. Because your heart is hurting. Because you are anxious. Because you are afraid. Because you are doubting. What does it say will happen to your heart once you put off the old self finally? You actually put that stuff to death. You put on the new self. It says, let the peace of Christ rule in your heart. You know, your heart is supposed to be at peace, but it will only be at peace when you actually set it on God and things above. I want to challenge us here. Ask yourself, what has been the hardest thing for you to be spiritual about? What has been the hardest thing in your walk with God just to be spiritual about? To set your heart on things above and not on earthly things. And I want to challenge you. Let the peace of Christ rule in your heart. Because when God is your everything, you will lack nothing. Now let's go to 1 Kings chapter 17. Point number 2 is, when God is your everything, you can get through anything. When God is your everything, you can get through anything. And the sub point here is God plus nothing equals everything will be okay. You guys following? 1 Kings chapter 17. Reading in verse 1. It says, now Elijah the Tishbite from Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab, As the Lord, the God of Israel lives, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years except at my word. So some context. Elijah is a prophet. Ahab is the king of Israel. And God tells Elijah to tell King Ahab that there's going to be no rain for a few years. It's going to be a bad drought and a bad famine. And some more context that you could see in the chapter before and the chapter after is that Elijah is basically FBI most wanted in the nation right now. And the reason why is because the nation has abandoned covenant worship with God, and they've embraced idol worship and Baal worship. So basically, they think Elijah is an evil wizard that has cursed the sky and they've stopped the rain. And they believe that if they can find Elijah and kill him, that Baal or whoever the pagan gods are going to restore the rains and the crops. That make sense? So Elijah's actually in a very is he the one that stopped the rain? No. God told Elijah that he was going to stop the rain, and Elijah has to be the one to go tell King Ahab. So now look what here happens in verse 2. Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah. Leave here, turn eastward and hide in the Kerith ravine, east of the Jordan. You will drink from the brook, and I have directed the ravens to supply you with food there. So he did what the Lord had told him. He went to Kerith ravine, east of the Jordan, and stayed there. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. Okay, so imagine you're Elijah here, and you've just told the king there's going to be a great famine, there's going to be a great drought, and now the king wants nothing more than to kill you. And how does God comfort Elijah? Like, what's his great plan here to make sure Elijah's going to be okay? Well, first he says, go hide in the middle of nowhere. Go to the wilderness, and there's going to be a river there you can drink from. And for food, I'm going to have magical birds come and I'm just going to airlift supplies to you, or they're just going to bring you bread and meat every day. I wonder if Elijah was kind of skeptical of that plan. You know, he shows up, and then the birds come, and they bring him food and bread, and there he is. He's just kind of chilling there. And every day, he's completely reliant on God sending more magic birds to deliver him food. So that's kind of a crazy plan, isn't it? And so this is going to be how he lives for a while. Now look here in verse 7. Sometime later, the brook dried up because there had been no rain in the land. Then the word of the Lord came to him. Go at once to Zarephath in the region of Sidon and stay there. I have directed a widow there to supply you with food. So he went to Zarephath. When he came to the town gate, a widow was there gathering sticks. He called to her and asked, would you bring me a little water in a jar so I may have a drink? As she was going to get it, he called, and bring me, please, a piece of bread. As surely as the Lord your God lives, she replied, I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug. I'm gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we will eat it and die. Elijah said to her, don't be afraid. Go home and do as you have said. But first, make a small loaf of bread for me from what you have, and bring it to me, and then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. The jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land. So a lot of kind of humor for me in this story. So the plan for Elijah is go hang out by this brook, this river, and just drink water out of it, and I'll send birds to give you food. And it says after a while the brook dries up, so he didn't have a special river. Like just day by day it was slowly depleting. And then he's out of water. So now what does God tell him to do? He says go to Zarephath. Now that's relevant because that's where the Samaritans live. These are not God-fearing people. He says I've commanded a widow to give you food over there. Now, a widow, even in today's society, that's a tough situation to be in, but especially here, you were an extremely vulnerable spot if you're a widow. To be a woman with children and no husband, no man to protect you, that would have been actually a very vulnerable situation to be in, especially during a time where things are this bad. How bad is it? What's her plan for the day? I'm going to look for sticks. There's not that many sticks around. So she's looking for sticks, just a few, so that she can make a little bread for her last meal for herself and her son. And God tells Elijah, I've commanded a widow there to provide food for you. So Elijah shows up, and does it seem like the widow has heard anything about giving him food? No, a bit of a miscommunication there, right? It's like, hey, go meet my friend over there. He wants to talk to you. And then you go, and he's like, who are you? Why are you here? So Elijah shows up to talk to the widow, And he's like, hey, can I have some food? She's like, I don't have any food. I'm going to eat my last meal and die with my son. And Elijah's like, right. So do that, but first give the food to me. And give the food to me because God told me that if you give me your food, he's going to like miraculously provide you with an infinite amount of food. What would you say if you're this widow? Random stranger from a different land. You got any water over there? Can I have it? How about food? Oh, you don't have any food? Well, I got a plan. God told me you're going to never run out of food if you just give your food to me. Are you like, sounds like a plan if you're this widow. No. Now, even think about this, right? Is Elijah trying to scam her here? No, but he's been put in a difficult situation, right? Like, I wonder if he felt embarrassed about asking the widow for food here. Why do you think he might have actually felt confident? Like how did he have the audacity to even, like, approach this widow and tell her, like, no, give me the food, though? Yeah, think about his experience before. So he did not allow the future, his projections of the future to be dictated by his own anxiety. Rather, he allowed his faith to be informed by his real experiences with God. See, he knew that God would take care of him because God always had taken care of him. And he knows that if this woman would just have faith in God, that God will take care of her too because he always does. Now look here at what she does. Verse 15. She went away and did as Elijah had told her. So there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and her family, for the jar of flour was not used up and the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. It's pretty incredible, isn't it? See, right now we're doing special missions, and sometimes I can feel a little weird about asking people to give so much money, but then I have to remember that I've actually been taking care of God myself, and so my conviction can come from not like speculation, but from my real experiences with God. So I want to share a little bit about my experience with you. In 2021, I got married to Alyssa, which was a very good thing to happen to me. And we're supposed to get married in April. And I remember around like late January, early February, I was asked to speak at church and give the contribution message. We used to do that every week. We don't do that here anymore. But I went up there, and kind of similar to Charles, I went up there and I said, all right, guys, I'm trying to get married this April. I don't have any money for that. I would like to go on a honeymoon after the wedding. After the honeymoon, I'd also like to live somewhere with my wife. But before any of that, I'm going to give my special missions. Now, that year, special missions was $2,500 per person. And I didn't have any money. So I said that, and I think like Raph was in New York there. I forget who it was, but someone after was like, that was really crazy what you just said. Like you're really going to do that? You're going to give your full missions amount, even though you have to pay for a wedding, and it's coming up in a few months, and it sounds like you're like unintelligently unprepared for it? Like, are you... Is that really what you're going to do? And I thought about it. I was like, wow, that was kind of crazy. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I trust that God will provide me what I need to give to missions because he gives to those who are generous, and I believe that he's going to take care of me too. So I don't know why I was so faithful at that point in my life. But you know what's crazy is later that day, so the service had been live streamed, and someone, not a part of our church, was watching the live stream, reached out to our church, got my email address, and said, hey, I was so inspired by what you shared, I want to donate $1,000 to you for your wedding. Isn't that really cool? Then a few days later, or the next Sunday, we baptized this teenager, like 15-year-old teen, and his parents came to the baptism, never met him before. And his dad is like very stoic, like super tall Nigerian guy. And he was like, hey, I don't know what you said to my son, but I appreciate it. I'd like to pay you for your service. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I can't accept that. It's a free service. We don't charge for baptisms. And he seemed happy with that. Okay, sounds good. And then they leave, and he comes back and says, my wife said that I have to give you money for this. So I need you to accept it because my wife is going to ask me if you did. And I said, well, you're going to have to tell your wife we don't accept money for baptisms. That's not what we do. And the teen who just got baptized said, Dad, he's getting married in a few months. Just donate to his wedding. And he says, well, can I donate to your wedding? I said, well, I guess I can accept that from you. So he gave me nearly another $1,000. And then a few days after, this is all like within like a couple weeks. A few days later, the parents of one of the sisters in the campus ministry called me, which is not new because they didn't like me. And they often would call me to tell me all the things they didn't like about me. And I never really said anything in these conversations. I just, okay, all right. And then it'd be over. So I get a message like, hey, can we talk? Sure, I can get yelled at for another round. It's the mom, and she's like, hey, I know we have had our differences in the past, which is funny because I don't know what differences I never shared anything, you know? And she's like, hey, but I've seen all the good that has happened for my daughter, and I know you're getting married, so I'd like to write you a check for $1,000 to donate to your wedding. This really happened. So now we're like, okay, we have some money to plan for our wedding. So we start like looking for a venue, and I go to this park, and I'm like, it's a nice park in Newark, New Jersey, and hey, we can put down a refundable deposit here. We could rent some string lights and then return them, and put some fold-out chairs, and because I wanted to prioritize the money I had for like a place to live or like maybe a honeymoon. I was like, we can get married anywhere. So this might be like really shocking. I was certainly shocked. At the time, Alyssa's parents were not super enthusiastic about her marrying me. So I guess they didn't see the potential. So initially, they said, we will not be contributing anything to this wedding. In fact, we hope it does not happen. I said, fair enough. We're going to figure it out. And we settle on the venue, right? A park. And we, of course, invite the family and say, hey, we're going to get married. I'd like for you to come. And Alyssa's mom is like, well, I can see that you're actually getting married, so I don't want you guys to get married in a park. Here's $5,000 to find a wedding venue. Right? So they give us $5,000. So now we have our wedding venue taken care of. You know, the year before, right, 2021, the year before, early in COVID, I remember all my roommates got a stimulus check. They all got a check for like $1,200. And I remember going to the mailbox, and like my roommates one by one every day, like, I got my check, and I'm gonna contribute to the economy. And I remember like every day, like, am I gonna get a check? And I called, and I was on hold for like 3 days, and I never got. I was like, I guess I just don't get a stimulus check. Well, like a full year later, I remember I go to my mailbox, and there's like an apology. Something went wrong, and so just in time for missions, I get my $1,200 stimulus check. Go ahead and put that straight into missions. Then another couple in the church who I kind of like downplayed that they were doing pretty well, I guess. You know, act broke to stay rich sort of principle. And they said, hey, we actually have this very nice like timeshare resort plan. And we like to go on nice vacations every other year or so. But we appreciate everything that you and Alyssa have done for the church. And so as a gift to you, we want to give you guys an all expense paid 7-day full package at a resort of your choosing. So we got a 7-day unlimited all expense honeymoon in Cancun as a result of that. And it was unlimited tacos. I don't know if I should say this at church. Unlimited margaritas and pina coladas, right? Responsible. But it was free, was the point, right? That was cool. And, you know, so with all the money we had gotten for what was supposed to go to the wedding venue and supposed to go to the honeymoon, well, we had the few $1,000s, so we put that together and we got approved for a 1-bedroom apartment outside of Newark, New Jersey. And, you know, we came back from that honeymoon to an apartment with nothing in it besides a few boxes from our registry. And I was like, man, God is totally taking care of us right here. So we each hit our full missions, and somehow all that stuff happened. So sometimes I feel bad, yes, calling you guys to be generous. But really, it's only bad if you don't believe that God will take care of you. If you believe that God will take care of you, the Bible says that he will. So I have a challenge for you guys here. Write down the top 2 times in your life that God came through for you. What are the top 2 times where you're like, you know what? That was definitely God that came through. And you know what you'll probably find as you're thinking about it? He's come through for you a lot more than 2 times. A lot more than 2 times. And so if you have the conviction that God is actually there and he's coming through, and even in situations where you're not faithful, he's just generously, not because he has to, upholding his end of a promise that we broke. That's just how much he loves us, how much he takes care of us. Then I want to ask you, Are you making decisions out of fear for what God has never shown you he will do? Or are you making decisions out of faith because God has never given you a reason to doubt him? Here, let's go to John chapter 8. All that stuff is totally true. John chapter 8. Point number 3, our last point here. God's promises are reserved for the faithfully obedient. God's promises are reserved for the faithfully obedient. John 8, verse 31. The Bible says, "To the Jews who had believed him, Jesus said, 'If you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.'" It's a very, very key principle we have to understand. What you believe is determined by what you do. What you actually believe is determined by your behavior. See, a lot of our beliefs, we don't realize we don't even believe our beliefs. Right? Like, we believe in God, but we're functional atheists, if that makes sense. Right? If you believe in Jesus, what does he say you will do? You will hold to his teaching, and then you will know what? The truth. What truth is he talking about? He's talking about the deepest truth about your purpose and your existence, and like the most valuable truth that you could ever have. And you actually cannot find it through exhaustive study and reading like, how does he say you will find the truth? By holding to his teachings, living like a real disciple. If you hold to his teachings, you are really my disciples. Implying what? That there are fake disciples. And what distinguishes a real disciple from a fake disciple has nothing to do with their beliefs. Only whether or not they are living out those beliefs. If they're actually practicing what they say. And you know what it says? You will know the truth. And what's the result of knowing the truth? Freedom. Freedom. How do you know if you're really a disciple? How do you know if you've been holding to the teachings? Well, you know the truth, and the truth has set you free. Free from what? He goes on to talk about sin, meaning you're perfect? Not at all. Meaning that you're no longer worrying. You're no longer doubting. You're letting the peace of Christ rule in your heart. You don't have anything besides God, and you have everything that you need. See, God wants you to be free. And the things that are holding you back are just the things that you're putting your hope in today. And when you put your hope in things that are not God, your hope will be deferred. What happens when our hope is deferred? Let's go to Matthew chapter 7, and we'll close out here. Matthew 7, verse 24. Here Jesus tells us a very interesting story that gives us a lot to think about in our own lives. Matthew 7, 24. "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." See, whether or not you believe is determined by what you do. You know, all of us are building our house, so to speak. The way you build your house is just the way that you're living your life. And whether you realize it or not, every decision you make, everything that you do or do not do is contributing to this greater domain that is your life, and Jesus just calls it your house. And there's really two places you can build it. You can build it on the rock, or you can build it on the sand. What does he say means to build your house on the rock? It's those who hear Jesus' words and puts them into practice. Now, if you think about it like you're going to build a house, right? You have like solid bedrock or you have sand. Which one is going to be easier to start constructing your house? Actually, it's going to be the sand. The sand is way easier to start building. The rock is actually going to take a long time. See, building your house on the rock is slow, it's painful, but it's rewarding. Building your house on the sand is quick, it's easy, and it's disappointing. Now, you'll notice both these builders have two things in common. Do they both hear the words of Jesus? They both do. One chooses to put them into practice, the other does not. What do they then both experience, regardless of where they build their house? It says the storm. What kind of storm? It says that the streams rise, the rain comes down, the winds blow and beat against the house, but the one on the rock does not fall, the one on the sand does. What kind of storm? Well, it's a storm that's strong enough to destroy you if you're not following Jesus, but not strong enough to destroy you if you are following Jesus. See, when you put your heart in God and his promises, it's not a promise that life will be easy, but it won't be so hard that it will steal your peace. You'll be able to maintain your joy. But if you put your heart in things not Jesus, you'll be happier today because the storm's not here right now. But when the storm comes, you will find yourself ill-prepared for what's happening. You know, this happens all the time. I saw recently there was these guys who bet a ton of money on this UFC fight, and the bet lost, and then they all committed suicide. Isn't that really sad? Because they put their faith in what they thought they understood, and they did all the math, and they took out a bunch of loans to be able to make a bigger wager to make more money. And when the money didn't come through, the storm was too much. And you know what? Things like that happen all the time. They happen all the time. Some of us are very concerned about like the stock market and the recession and the price for gas and stuff like that. Think about Elijah's situation. Like the economy is, who has sticks and flour? And think about it, like the unlimited flour, unlimited oil, that'd be like an unlimited checking account. Right? Imagine every time you make a withdrawal, it just replenishes. That'd be a nice situation, right? What's the irony of this? You don't need that because God will take care of you. He's promising to. Matthew 6:33, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these will be given to you as well. Again, the question is not, will God uphold his end of the deal? The question is, will we have faith? You know what's interesting about that widow of Zarephath is she never comes up in the Bible again until Luke chapter 4. And you know what Jesus says about her? Elijah went to Zarephath to that widow because there was no one in Israel at the time that had any faith. Jesus will find the one who has faith, give them an opportunity to put it into practice, and then fulfill his promises every single time. So I want to challenge you guys on this point. Consider God's promises. Just like think about them. Think about the ones you know from the Bible. Matthew 6:33 is a good one. Choose to focus on fulfilling your part of that promise. That's not the part we tend to focus on, right? Matthew 6:33, will he really give me all these things as well? Then a wrong point of emphasis. Will you seek first his kingdom and his righteousness? Consider God's promises, choose to focus on fulfilling your part, and faithfully obey. So in conclusion here, make God your everything. Because God plus nothing means you lack nothing. Give God your everything. Because with God, you can get through anything. Trust God with everything. Because if you have God, you'll be safe and secure because God always provides. Thank you. That's the lesson.